It might not feel like it, but the summer season is well upon us, providing a much-needed distraction from the outside world with a respectable crop of new and returning anime. However, because I already counted all the delayed shows as spring, there were only 20 new anime openings to comb through this season, by far my fewest ever. On the flip side, for the first time, I'll be able to devote a spot on the list for every single opening that I thought was really worth my time. And don't worry, there are plenty of openings this season that are worth everyone's time. The quantity might have been cut, but luckily the quality was not. Now, as a slight change moving forward, I'm no longer going to physically include the honorable mentions in these videos, partially to improve editing time and mostly to help maintain my sanity. They will now be included in a list form like this. Since in the past most of these generally boil down to this song is good or I like the pretty visuals, I'll just denote what stood out to me without wasting 2 or 3 minutes of everyone's time. For this season there were only 3 honorable mentions, so it doesn't matter too much, but obviously if you really missed this section, let me know in the comments so we can keep this fluid moving forward. Now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, without further ado, it's time for the true songs of the summer. It's been well documented at this point that I don't exactly prefer slower openings, but for the first time ever, Fruits Basket does make it onto the actual seasonal list. This opening was the very clear barrier to entry for me this season, as it's a step up in quality above the 8 other openings that I will not be discussing. There are some dynamic shots, very nice backgrounds, and a general light filter that makes everything look pretty. There are really few individual moments that jump off the screen, but I do enjoy how the credits fade in as well as this classic shot right here. Ultimately, beyond the nice visuals, the piano line is what convinced me to include this. Its constant tempo is what stops Home from getting too sluggish, and was enough to keep my attention the entire time. Honestly, the funniest thing in all this is that far and away my favorite opening in this series is OP2 Chime, which I didn't know existed last summer and forgot to put in that video. So I guess consider this my Fruits Basket consolation. Home looks nice, it fits the tone of the show, and sometimes that's all you can really ask for. Ahiru no Soro's openings have done nothing but improve over the last year, going from fine to honorable mention and finally hitting the top 10 back in spring. Unfortunately, the show's final opening dropped the ball a little bit. Gone is the stylistic aesthetic, replaced by more run-of-the-mill character shots and basketball animation. But despite no eye-catching style, I do think the visuals tell the story they're trying to tell very effectively. I know what this arc is going to be about, what the major conflict is, and the emotions behind it all from this minute and a half. That's not something you can say for a lot of openings. Also, they've always had really beautiful skies for some reason. Musically, Rebirth is not as in-your-face as Hummingbird was, but I don't think it needs to be. That rewinding intro immediately grabs your attention, and then the follow-up guitar is very tasty. The chorus is strong enough to support the fast-paced action, and all around it's just an enjoyable listen, as is basically every ACIDMAN song. One thing that I really do want to credit this show for is the absolute ridiculous band selection they've been able to get. The openings in the show's catalog are by The Pillows, Flumpool, Blue and Count, and now ACIDMAN. Just a Hall of Fame collection there. I really wish the visuals had been able to hold up over the course of the series because the music has consistently been there. Overall, OP4 falls a bit more in line with those first 2 openings, despite ACIDMAN's best efforts to create a more impressive display. I admittedly did not remember either of the previous 2 SNAFU openings when I saw this one for the first time, and that allowed me to be a bit more lenient originally than I'm going to be right now. Upon rewatching SNAFU and SNAFU 2's OPs, I've realized that Climax's is by far the blandest of the 3. Gone are the bright colors, geometry, and flowery visuals, replaced by characters walking in a tram. It's not bad, it doesn't make me want to turn it off, it's just disappointing when the series has shown it can be flashy with its openings. The one thing I do love though is that they've maintained the characters' colors through all 3 openings, even after a 5-year gap. Yukino is purple, Yui is pink, and Hachiman is blue, except for the first Brains-based season where he's green, but don't worry about that. It's always cool to see a through line like that in a longer running series, especially after such a long break. What saved this opening in my mind was the chorus, straight up. It's one of the most memorable set pieces this season, even if everything leading up to it didn't impress me a ton. I mean, come on, the Komachi spin is enough to lighten anyone's mood. It's all well animated, it looks nice, it's cool to see these characters dressed up, and it's different, most importantly. It's not too often you see the characters directly interacting with the song like this. I appreciate it. They also brought back Nagi to perform the song as she did both of the previous seasons, and it's really good. It has good energy and tempo without feeling out of place in this show, and I do like string-heavy openings, even if I am the big guitar boy. It fits really well for SNAFU, and I can accept it'd be kinda weird if this show suddenly had an Asian Kung Fu Generation opening or something. I'm still a bit disappointed by the visuals here, but when you average out all the moving parts, I'm happy with Climax's place here at 10. In many ways, when you imagine a standard fantasy anime opening, this is generally what pops into your head. Character walking towards the screen, maybe some sad rain, some random symbols, and showing off powers during the chorus. But truly, if you're not going to innovate on your opening too much, just throwing colors at everything is a pretty good alternative. The color usage here is fantastic. Whether it's the eyes or coding the characters to their particular color through monochrome shots, I think it does a good job. I actually also really like the bit at the end where they run through the characters, but they're all like stand-ups. The Black Clover spinoff did this as well earlier this year. I don't know, I feel like more shows should do this when they want to use still shots of characters. The sort of staticky transitions are also a nice touch, and all of this is enough to get me to at least appreciate the visuals here. Still, the more interesting part for me is the song, or, well, the band Civilian. They've been around for a while under the name Ryuru until 2016, and have a very strong discography, but they've only been involved in anime a few times before, featuring on a Naruto ED and performing the second opening for All Out, if you remember that show, and Altair: A Record of Battles, both which are flamed, by the way. Sekai Fusekai is very good. It's a bit more electronic leaning than some of their other stuff, so I can't say I'm in love with it, but I think it oddly fits this genre of show quite well. I am kind of a sucker for the guitar sync to the visuals during the first verse though, and that chorus does hit hard. So I can't be too much of a critic here. I think there is room for improvement, or at least creativity, both visually and audibly, but as far as openings for these types of shows go, this is one of the better ones we've seen this year. Okay, so with how weird this season is, there's kind of a tear break here in my mind, where I think the final 8 openings do things a bit better than the previous 4. It's not really important, I just wanted to make the distinction known somehow. Anyway, I hope you're having a good time. Moving on. Sawano! It's been a while since we got a right Sawano banger as an opening. It's been 5.5 years since the second season of All the Know is Zero, but I've missed my big hype boy. Everything he produces has a very distinct style, and Chaos Drifters is no different. You could slot this into any OST he's worked on and you wouldn't bat an eye. It even has a minor Sawano drop in it. The visuals fit the gritty tone of the show and are a lot more serious than the first seasons. They play around with the background's dominant color a lot and throw in black bars for effect. The best shot of the whole thing is the fade in, fade out with just the cigarette smoke, add in some JoJo's poses, and now we're just getting ridiculous. Also credit to the opening for giving me one of the most unintentionally funny screenshots of the year. Sawano and solid visuals make this the first truly recommendable opening of the season. I love this opening, and I also hate this opening, and I truly cannot make up my mind. The song is good, not great, but I like it, and I actually really like the verse and love that first drop. I also think it's cool that we have an American singer in an original opening, as I think that shows some acknowledgement to how big anime has gotten in the West. Crunchyroll probably had something to do with that though. I do hope anime keep branching out in their music choices like both of the webtoon adaptations have done, as it's a nice change of pace. Let's just not do it too much. Where the song goes off the rails for me is that second drop, I guess. Maybe it's just because this isn't the type of electronic music I listen to, but it whiplash pulled me out of an opening I was enjoying. And it's disappointing too, because the visuals during that point are great. Kind of. The number one thing this opening has going for it is its downright reckless use of color. Everything is colorful all the time, and I appreciate that. The transitions are some of my favorites of the season, and the soul shots at the beginning are nice. Where the visuals fall apart for me is the second half, when you realize the reason everything is so colorful is that they just pulled animation from episode 1 and made it the opening. This isn't a complete deal breaker for me, but it does put a pretty hard cap on an opening ceiling. The Black Clover spinoff, which I am now referencing for the second time today, did this too, but at least that was a spinoff, not a brand new show. One of the weirdest parts of this for me is that it very much feels like an OP1, for a soul arc that would last an entire core. At least at that point, the reused footage would narratively make sense, but halfway through the show's run, this opening is already extremely outdated. Like, none of these characters matter in the anime, so unless a new version of this appears soon, this is going to be kind of an odd opening. Kind of feels like they were expecting the source's pacing for the season and then got caught off guard. We'll never know. The whole thing is just a little bit odd to me. It's still an enjoyable enough opening at the end of the day. I even had this as high as 3 at one point early on, and it's also been as low as 8, so we're sticking it at 7 and moving on. Remember when I said SNAFU had one of the most memorable set pieces of this season? Well, here's the most memorable set piece of the season. Just hitting us right out the gate with massive Wotakoi vibes. I love these 7 seconds of animation so much. That's it. All shows should now have their characters record dances for the opening. That is now law. There's also an equally as good bit with the girls towards the end, but it passes by much quicker. Elsewhere, the background color gradients are nice, the phone aesthetic is spot on, and all the movements are synced up to the song perfectly. I'm not sure it outranks Kimi no Se or Stand By Me, but Centimeter is still a top tier effort from the Peggies, as they only release good music anyway. It fits the opening and the tone so well, and the main guitar is what even drives the dance sequence in the first place. I also weirdly love the echo effect used occasionally on Kitazawa's voice. This is easily a top 5 song of the season. Some slower spots in the middle visually is what ultimately locks this in at only 6, but if you liked this, please go listen to the Peggies on Spotify. Please, do it for me. We could only wish that the actual show was as cohesive as this opening is. You know, I appreciate the fact that Netflix still includes openings in its anime despite the fact that they now auto-skip to them anyway, because we wouldn't get gems like this, or Devilman Crybaby, or Beastars. Honestly, maybe not having to design a show around a normal TV schedule is good for opening creativity? I don't know, let's sideline that for later. In Japan's syncs, the appeal is very easy to spot, those watercolor visuals. It stands out because it looks completely different from anything else on this list, and all the shots just seamlessly transition between each other as we move through the day. Why does food in anime always look so good? Send tweet. Watching this has an odd calming effect as the colors are soft and the music is quite pretty, and I think that was the point. To sort of contrast this opening with the actual contents of the show. This isn't a disaster movie opener, it's a peaceful normal day in a family's life, and I wish the show followed up on the nuanced approach this opening provides. You can honestly sell this as an independent short film and not an anime opening, and it would be believable. Because of this, the song isn't exactly your normal top 10 anime bangers, but I really do enjoy the soft piano combined with those beautiful visuals. Does this being sung by Taika Onuki make me want a city pop anime opening now? Yes, very much, but that's beside the point. There isn't anything too deep or intricate about this opening itself, it just sets out to artistically capture a normal day in someone's life, and it absolutely nails it. Now time for the big boys. It's big boy time. Okay, sorry, after I got all avant-garde there, let's get back to our roots, shall we? ReZero's opening immediately demands your attention with that slamming guitar strings combo that musically is my favorite part of the song. I also like that they're able to dial up and down the intensity of the verse essentially just by adding or taking away the guitar, and the chorus bangs. Konomi Suzuki is back as she performed the first ReZero opening redo in 2016 and has done so many openings and EDs over the last 8 years that it would be too long of a tangent even for me to go over them right now. She's also somehow younger than me, I don't want to talk about it. But just remember her name as it's going to come up again pretty soon. It's almost impossible for me to talk about the visuals without spoiling Season 1 things, so if you're worried about that, skip to the timestamp that is surely on screen right now. By far the coolest thing in this entire opening is Subaru walking past his Season 1 deaths. Like, the symbolism there is just so good. I wish the last death to Felix and Julius was in there, but I'm nitpicking, I'm sorry. It's just such a dope visual to see him standing next to his own dead body, combined with the fact that for a few of these, we never actually got to see the aftermath. I think they go a bit too heavy with the theme during the chorus, as it's basically just watch Subaru die over and over again, but it does improve a lot once they start flashing in the images with it. but the one where he gets headshot and pushes the body out of the way is really cool. Also, if this winds up being the exact number of deaths he has in this season, I'll take back everything I've said and make this number 1. I really enjoy all the foreshadowing towards the end as well, because I do think a good opening spoils stuff, but without you finding out. And they are creative with the physical credits, which is a plus, having them come in as archaic letters for a second before shifting to Japanese. It's hard to say if this is better than either of the first season's openings, but I will say that it honors the series quite well and captures the spirit of the season very effectively. It didn't quite have the firepower to break into the top 3, but given the circumstances, it'll be an opening that I think about for a long time. Mostly because I never use it in the actual show. Remember like a minute ago when we were talking about Konomi Suzuki? Well, she's back! For the first time, I think ever, we have the same artist in 2 of the top 5 spots. And Theater of Life is even better than Realize is. It slams into you immediately with the best opening guitar of the season, followed up by Suzuki's vocals and an array of different guitar sections. It seriously changes like 4 different times during the verse. It's almost unnecessarily complex, but I appreciate the flex nonetheless. The song also uses one of my personal favorite tricks, which is saying something right before the chorus hits. I don't have an explanation for why it just adds so much extra hype, it just does. Oh, and then the final 10 seconds are the guitar riff reprise from the beginning. This is all just a long way for me to say, song good. The visuals are really what steal the show though. There's so much going on in every shot that the first time I watched this I had zero idea what was happening. It also heavily spoils plot points, but in obtuse enough of a way that I watched this before starting the show and it didn't change my expectations at all. I just thought, wow, it's kind of weird how so much of this has a video game aesthetic. Also, why are there robots? Anyway, that aesthetic is what shines the most here. The world instancing in behind Kaburagi, Natsume loading in, the little underwater game, all the info boxes. Essentially every shot in the first half commits to the gaming theme, and then they just throw in a Pac-Man homage toward the end. Don't even get me started on the colors. They're bright and everywhere all the time, and they used vaporwave coloring for this shot, and I love it. The only part that breaks away from the video game look is the chorus, which casually provides us with some of the best action of the season. I particularly like the hand fade and this shot of Natsume. There's so much going on in this opening that I'm sure I'll discover something else as the show's actual plot continues on. But even without all the secrets revealed just yet, this is still a phenomenal opening. There are many things you can say about SAO at this point, but I'm consistently amazed at its dedication to incredible openings, going on 8 years now. Not only does the show not have a bad opening, it doesn't even really have a mediocre one, and has 2 of my favorite openings ever in Crossing Field and Adamus. I was kind of hoping that they'd bring Lisa back for the series' potentially final opening, but Ryona absolutely crushed this, so no worries here. She's an SAO regular herself at this point after her involvement with GGO and doing 2 different Alization EDs. Her first full album is releasing in October and I am very excited. I've liked everything she's produced, but Anima is a step above all of that. The song is so good and so multifaceted. Opening with a chorus lyric preview into a synth line into a full strings drop is just so ridiculous that I can't wrap my head around it. Then they ditch all of that and go to a driving guitar line accented by strings and build up back from there. Honestly, all songs should have synth in them. I don't care. Just figure it out. The breakdown of the pre-chorus is my personal favorite section of the song, and the chorus hits real hard, making good on the promises made at the beginning. Throw in everybody's favorite vocalization at the end, and I am very happy. SAO doesn't stop at the song, though, throwing together some of the best shots of the summer and a lot of nostalgia. Hey, remember the other arcs of the show? I just made a big fuss about the opening of the song, but the visuals support it tremendously. The sweeping shot of all the girls and their associated colors is amazing, and the shot of Kirito in the classroom is thematically perfect. But the best part of the opening is the black and white static camera shots where the underworld characters are in the real world aside the rest of the cast, but in the background. It honestly took me a few watches to understand that they were even there. And of course, everyone is accented by one distinct color, and we all know how much I love that. Similar to my complaint with the first core of Underworld's OP, I think the Bleeding Soul Cube is a bit heavy-handed, but at least it looks cool. Yu-Gi-Oh is 10 out of 10 because Yu-Gi-Oh is always 10 out of 10. I also wish there was more action in the chorus, but Kirito back, and the ending is a nice throwback to that one scene from the first season that happened like 70 episodes ago. It was actually a really close battle between this and the number 1 opening, and I even flipped them a couple times while scripting this, but ultimately SAO got edged out for the top spot by a hair. If this had aired in spring like originally planned, it would have been a runaway for that season's top spot, but them's the breaks. And if this is the final mainline SAO opening we ever get, at least they went out with a bang. Aimer opening, Aimer opening, Aimer opening. So somehow I'm just realizing that I have never gotten to talk about Aimer in one of these videos, and that this is her first anime opening since 2016. As she generally does EDs, I guess that makes sense. But because of this, I have to make it clear now that my love of Aimer's music transcends anime. Sundance was one of my favorite albums of 2019, and Penny Rain wasn't far behind, and then you had singles like Torches and I Beg You, and last year was a very good year for me. Spark Again is only her 3rd opening song ever, and man, she just does not miss. It's my favorite song of the season, easily. Every part of this song is incredible. Yes, the opening guitar riff is obvious, but why is the bass so good when it comes in during the White Clad shot? Actually, the bass is fantastic in the entire song, grounding it while the guitars go off and hang out and commit arson. The chorus is the best part of the song, there's no debating this. You know that it's fire when they use it as the preview music. The guitar is just raining down from the heavens, and I've listened to it about 50 times. It also goes without saying that the vocals are perfect and I want Aimer to do more openings. Please, I don't ask for much. Fire Force also got Cider Girl to do the ED, as this series' biggest strength continues to be its artist selection, but this is an OP video, not an ED video. Which is why I will now finally address the actual video part of this opening. I still don't think they've reached Inferno's level for me, but there are still plenty of good shots here, and it's a big step up from Mayday. I think the opener is cool and a nice way to show off all the Adola Burst characters, and the worm shot is fine. Where it picks up is when Karan creates his own scene transition. That's actually one of my favorite shots of the season. That entire White Clad shot is great as well, as it syncs up with the song really nicely. So does Inca being weird as well. The entire chorus fight is super well animated too, with incredibly smooth transitions. Actually, I am now obsessed with this show's transitions. Shinra jumping over Arthur's back, Joker's card, going from Joker's eyes to Burns, show stopping time, the zoom out to Iris. This is how you make a cohesive opening, I love it so much. Essentially the only weak spot is the still Fire Force Company shots, which are fine, at least they're quick and fun. I honestly have no idea how they're going to follow this up in Core 2. I'm not quite ready to say this is the best opening of 2020. Blackcatcher probably still has that title, but for the summer season for the 2nd straight year, Fire Force reigns supreme.